What was your reaction when Brett Favre signed with the Vikings entering your second year with the team?
Man, that was insane, right? So like I always laugh and tell people, I go, this is how I knew like he was a head and shoulders above all of us. Because when he came into the parking lot, I mean, the entire team, there's probably not that many, but there's probably 25, 30 of us, like faces pressed up against the glass watching. And I look down, it's me, Kevin, Pat, Antoine Winfield, Greenway. Like, you had all pros with your face pressed up against the glass just to catch a glimpse of this guy coming into your locker room, right?
Yeah, and, he was a living legend at the time.
Yeah, it's like, man, this is amazing. And so, but then he comes in and you see the work ethic. And I try and tell people about that when people ask about Brett, because the legend that is. Mm-hmm. I said the reason he is, that dude's work ethic was second to none. I'd call him sometimes. Maybe it's just because he couldn't go anywhere without being bothered. But, like, hey, it'd be 10:30 at night. He might text you a question. He'd still be at the facility, or, or like, hey, you want to go hunting? Nah, man, I'm going to be at the facility till, 9 on a Friday, just breaking down film, watch it. So, like, the dude put it in. He worked his butt off in practice. And, so what you saw on the field is what he practiced. So, I had a lot of respect for that, for his work ethic. And there's another guy that he brought out greatness in others, right? Like, mm-hmm. And then maybe because it's just Brett, and you get around that, you're like, I don't want to be the guy to let this guy down. And so, yeah, you just went out there and performed with a confidence, because you knew you had a guy behind the helm that was that was capable of anything.
Yeah, and because of that, you guys had a successful year that season. And we have to talk about that 2009 conference championship game. You know what I mean? What sticks out over a decade later about that overtime loss to the Saints?
I'll never forget the 4th and 1. The guy fumbled, plain and simple. But, I was like, you can't advance fumble on 4th down. So I don't know how he fumbled it backwards and then did that. But, hey, it is what it is. I always – I constantly tell people, I say, had we gone on to win the Super Bowl – that might have been that team right there could have arguably been, top 10 teams in the NFL, Just you look at that season, the way we started, some of the wins that we had, it was spectacular. We were dominating people on both sides of the ball. But I also tell people it's crazy because we were so dominant that year that we had some glaring holes that just got overlooked, right? You're scoring 40 points, you're holding people to 10. You really kind of don't think, but we had some injuries. We were missing some depth in some key areas. And then 2010 comes, and we got some injuries in those key areas, from our starters, and the wall crumbled. But man, 2009 was insane. I think that taught me like really what it was to be on that upper echelon team, right? Mm-hmm. In my career, you could benchmark that. So my last year with Carolina, when we got to go to the Super Bowl, you could feel that. You could feel it. Like, yep, this is very similar. There's that match. Cam was. I always likened Cam with his energy, was playing like Brett. He was out of his mind. We were winning some games that that were close. We were blowing people out. Defense was insane. So yeah, it was cool, man. It was cool to really be able to benchmark yourself in that career of what the elite looks like, right? Yeah. When you're constantly scrapping to be 9-7, 10-6, getting in, and Brett was a real deal. Well, just Trent Green got hurt, so I never really had a true franchise quarterback, in my career, at least not like Brett. And you get that, and you see that difference, and you see why. Why those teams that are constantly, the New Englands were constantly, and you're like, okay, this is an expectation, and it raises everybody's play. It's a cool deal.
Yeah. Quarterbacks are super important. You know what I mean? Herm Edwards said it best. If you don't have a quarterback to field 150 yards.
Yeah. Like that. I don't think they're $500 million a year important, but come on.
Yeah. But and that's what Jared, that's one thing people don't really talk about too much, how good that 2009 team was. Look at offensively, you got Brett Favre, who was balling. Adrian Peterson still playing at a high level. Defensively, you guys were stacked. And like you said, man, just get into that level of playing in a conference championship game. You got to play clean football.
Yeah, it was. That team was crazy. People talk about our defense, right? You had myself, Pat and Kevin, obviously. You had Antoine, who is probably the most underrated cornerback that has played. But Chad Greenway, he I think, because we played a true 4-3, he never got the Pro Bowl nods. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think he ended up with like 2 or 3 in his career. But that dude constantly was like, top 10 in tackles every single year in the league. Yeah. We had EJ Henderson was an insane downhill linebacker. That dude could thump anybody. He reminded me, Fletcher, London Fletcher, right?
London Fletcher,
Fletcher Fletch wasn't going to cover people in the flat, but that's where EJ could actually run side to side better than Fletch. But
yeah,
those two would come downhill faster than anybody. So I mean, you look at that, just our front seven alone, Ben Lieber playing off the will. I mean, we were insanely stacked. And then like you said, I mean, Percy Harvin, you got
Sidney Rice.
Look what Sidney Rice did that year. Brett brought the best out of everybody. I mean, with Big Mac had an all-pro year that year. Hutch speaks for himself. The dude's in the Hall. The
Hall of Fame.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you look down that line and you're like, man, but I laugh and joke. I go, our weakest link on defense was still getting 8 sacks and 50 tackles a year, right?
Yeah.
Our D line, like everybody's like, oh, you had the 3. I'm like, Ray Edwards was a legit player, like that dude. But because I was getting 14, Pat, Kevin, and I, I'm like, when the least statistical guy on your field is 50 tackles and 8 sacks in a year, it's a pretty good defense to be on.
Do you think you guys would have matched up well against the Colts if you got to the Super Bowl?
I think we would have smashed them because I know preseason, but we had our little one quarter in the game, but we came in the preseason that year. Their starters we were like, all right, we're playing one series, whether it's 15 plays or that. I think we came out, it was like 3 plays, an incomplete, 2 sacks, and we were gone.
Yeah,
we were gone. We were licking our chops. I think we just knew. Obviously, Peyton's a beast in his own right, but we just knew when we got to that level, it wasn't going to be. I think our defense matched that offense well. The heat we could put up front, we knew we could neutralize Peyton just by forcing him to get the ball where we wanted him to. They went on and the Saints went on and won the Super Bowl. So, but yeah, it was one of those deals. You just you're sitting there. You go from celebrating, thinking you're going, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, we lost? How did this happen?
Oh man, devastating. And like I said, I know it's been over a decade, but clearly, man, that loss still has to haunt and feel some type of way about it because you guys were right there.
Well, then I my last year with Carolina, I'm playing with Roman Harper, who's my guy. And he was on that 2009 Saints team, right? Mm-hmm. And so he constantly wearing my Super Bowl ring and reminding me about it too. I was like,
he just twisted the knife. But
thanks, bro. That was the boys. Thanks, bro.
No question.